Let's go through an example process of plan to produce with process manufacturing using SAP's S/4HANA Public Cloud enhanced with SAP's Digital Manufacturing Cloud. I'll cover four main areas: MRP and demand planning, production execution, and reviewing the inventory with some batch traceability. I'll finish off with some manufacturing analytical insights, in particular the monitoring of OEE, overall equipment effectiveness. And for the purpose of this demo, I'll be producing some purple paint. Let's start by reviewing the recipe. I'll start with the manufacturing master data management and managing recipes. In order to make this one product, we're going to be using this recipe for purple paint. And we're going to have one operation and three phases. In the first phase, we'll be doing the premix, and there's some labor and machine time. And then here are some work instructions. Different types can be added. Let's look at one example. Here's a PDF. And then we've got the materials that we're going to consume, in this case premix and solvent. And then the data we're going to collect was just going to say that we've added the premix. Looking at the next phase, which is the main mixing phase. Again, the labor machine time and work instructions. And the materials, in this case, the red, green and blue base components. And then the data we're going to collect, the temperature and some additional information for the paint, which is the pH value, density and viscosity. And then the final phase is for cleaning. And if we look at the materials that we can consume, we're going to be using some pure solvent, and then we're going to get a byproduct of impure purple wash. And then we're going to acknowledge the cleaning has been done and that it's been dried. If I just look at the bill of materials here, and just explode each operational step out, you can see the bill of materials. Finally, let's look at the recipe details and just look at the outputs just to confirm that we'll be getting the purple paint and then some impure purple wash solvent as a byproduct. Now let's review the sales demand and use predictive MRP for medium to long-term planning. Forecast demand is either generated using SAP's add-on solution, Integrated Business Planning, or IBP, or any third-party solution. And this demand can be imported via APIs or uploaded via Excel into what we call PIRs, Planned Independent Requirements. And this will drive the MRP calculation. So if I go into Maintain PIRs, we've got a number of products here that need to be forecasted in weekly periods. The top one is our paint here. I can edit the details, or I can upload and edit the details from Excel. If I just click on Edit, here you see the demand for the different products in weekly periods and the different periods here that can be entered and maintained. You can also download the data into Excel via a spreadsheet and re-upload the data. If I look at our one product here for the purple paint, in this screen here I can see the summary of the PIRs of the forecast and any sales quantities. And here I can see the same thing graphically, the sales quantity, the PIR forecast going ahead, and the predictive PIRs for forthcoming periods. Now let's do a predictive MRP to look at some capacity material issues. If I select our paint here and drill into the details, here we've got 3 capacity issues and 2 violated material constraints. If I look at the first period here, where we've got the first issue, it's highlighted in the red box, you can see we've got a material constraint here where we're 92 litres over, and this 700 litres is the constraint with 220 overall that's gone over. And we've got a capacity overload beneath it where we've gone over by 13%. So let's look at this first issue and do a capacity plan simulation. So for our first period here, and if we just put the chart on, we can see we've gone over by 8 hours. And we can see this graphically in the chart beneath as well. I can see for that box here we've gone over by 8 hours. And there's a couple of things we can do here. We can shift the demand, so move the demand ahead, or we can change available capacity. Let's do that. The system's proposing an increase of 14%. Let's adopt the proposal, apply it, and that's just solved the capacity issue for that period. Now let's do a material simulation using simulation components. And we can see week 36 here and 37 here, we've got constraints of 700 and 800, and we've gone over in the first week here by 92. If I select that, you can see it's the cleaning pure solvent that's an issue, and we can see that the demand from the parent product where we've got a problem. So if we do a multi-level simulation on this first one here and explode the bill of materials, we can see our first issue of the material here of 750 litres, and it can be supplied by this one supplier, and we've gone over by 92 litres. Now we can do one or two things here. We can change the source of supply, or we can pull in the quantity. Let's change the source of supply, and we see we've got another supplier that we can purchase the product from, so let's adjust the quantities. Now continue working through all the other issues for capacity and material constraints until you come up with a feasible plan. Now we'll move on to MRP. We'll look at how the system intelligently solves material shortages, and we'll generate a process order for the purple paint. Typically, after MRP has been run, you run the app once the material coverages, and we'll be looking at the purple paint and this raw material here. On the right here, we see a heat map of when the shortages are going to occur. This can be in days or weeks, and you can set the number of periods that you're looking out to. So 13 weeks here, and I can see that the shortage is going to occur at this point in time. If I select my purple paint and the raw material, we'll go into this a bit more detail. Let's start by looking at the raw material. And you see the MRP transactions going out in time, and you can see this graphically as well, where you can see the requirement in orange and the plan replenishment in blue, and the red underline showing when shortages are going to occur. Go back to the transactions here. We can also see in red here where we've got the shortage, and we can click to try and solve these shortages through intelligent simulations. We've got a number of options being given here. Some are 2-star, some are 3-star. Let's try these out. Let's try a 2-star one out to start with for a new purchase order of 800 and simulate it. Now, due to the lead time, it's still going to end up being short by a number of days. Let's cancel that and try this one where an existing PO is being recommended to increase by 800. And let's simulate that. And you can see that does solve that particular shortage. And if I click on apply, we can now send a comment to the purchasing department to request this change with the supplier. And that can be workflowed accordingly. If I now look at our purple paint, again we see the transactions here, and we can see it graphically. Going back to the transactions, now there's lots of MRP transactions that have been created here with various process orders. To make it simpler, I'm just going to create a process order from here. And we'll create a process order for 450 litres for the purple paint, and give it a date and a source of supply. We've got one production version here, and click on create. Now we've got our process order in play. I'll just scroll down, and I need to convert it into an actual process order, so click on convert. and click OK. Now we've got our process order number, and I'll just select it, and let's just open it to have a look at a bit more details. And there's the order number 1038324. It's been released for 450 litres, and you can see the operations for paint mixing, adding a premix, mixing phase and cleaning, and we've got the bill of materials as well here. Now we'll look at the next 3 steps all in one go. We'll review the process order, review the production capacity, and carry out some scheduling. Firstly, I'll go into monitor process orders to have a look at our order. Select our order we created before. It's already been released. Go to manage orders. I can check its components, and it's all green, which means we've got ample stock of all the raw materials. And I look at the milestones, which are the operational steps. It's been released, it hasn't been started yet. We can see it's one operation with 3 phases. Now let's look at the capacity here. It's all being done on this particular work center, DC2 Evo Mix. And I go into the details. There's currently 25 hours of capacity being planned. And if I drill down to the details, I see a chart of the workload and all the capacity requirements. And if I look further at the operations, I can see the operations that make up that particular workload. And if I scroll down to our particular operation, we can see the order number and the dates that's been scheduled. It hasn't actually been dispatched, so let's actually review the schedule and carry out the dispatch. I go into the capacity scheduling board, and I'll zoom in on our particular work center, and I'll find our order. There it is there in the chart. And let's drill down. If I scroll back a bit, you see that we've got plenty of other orders on this plan as well, but I'm just going to work on our particular process order. So let's select it and click Schedule Production. So there's a number of orders here, and just as an example, you can set the strategy for scheduling, whether it's bucketed or sequenced, finite or infinite, or backwards or forwards. And you could select all these orders and carry out complete rescheduling by clicking dispatch. You can deallocate them and replan them, or you can realign by finding a slot or inserting an operation. Typically you want to do this if you've got a backlog that you want to reschedule. So in our case, let's just scroll down and select our one order, and we'll manually dispatch it. Go into the details, and we can see the different time slots available. We've just got day schedules here, so let's select this Thursday, and we've got the 3 phases underneath. I'll click on dispatch, and we'll find an available time slot within the Thursday. So it's used some Thursday and then rolled it across into the Friday, as you can see here. And if I just save that, then I'll go to the schedule overview, and we'll look at the chart again and drill down. And you can see here the operational start of starting on the Thursday and then rolling on to the Friday there. So now it's been scheduled and dispatched, we should be ready for the execution stage. Now let's execute the order on the shop floor. We'll release the process order, and we'll get the operator to complete each phase, and we'll confirm the production quantity. So let's first release the process order. Go into Manage Orders, and we'll find our order number. There it is. We'll select it. A batch number has been pre-created automatically, and we'll release it to the shop floor. Now that's been done, we'll go into the process order pod for the operator to start the work. Now typically this is a touch screen. The operator can navigate on again the shop floor. He's got one work center selected, and there's our process order for the purple paint, which is a new one ready to start. Let's go into that, and we've got our 3 phases on the left hand side. So the operator will click on start, and he's ready to start the work. Let's look at the work instructions that have come through, and I've got 2 here. We've got the PDF that we looked at earlier. Let's go and have a look at that. So any sort of safety type instructions that you have, or any other documentation that you want the operator to use at this point, can be done on a PDF. We've also got integration to our 3D Visual Enterprise viewer. So an example here is to look at the equipment of the Evo Mix, and we can drill down and get a 3D representation of the equipment. And maybe what the operator can do here is look at the equipment in details, and maybe we've got some work instructions, some steps here to evaluate. So we've got these step navigations, haven't got any in this case, or maybe we can just explode the equipment and drill down and look at maybe some setup of the machine to make sure that we've got the right settings before we start the work on the actual operation. Let's go back now, and as we've started the work, let's say we've done it. Let's go to the data collection and say that we've done the premix stage, and just click on yes. Now say what materials we consumed, which was the premix and the solvent. We've got some target quantities here, and I'll just assume the total quantities. Click on consume, and as they're batch controlled, select the batch number that they came from. You can change storage locations and handling units if you've got any sort of pallet type information. And there's the user that's doing the recording. Let's click confirm, and we'll do the same for the solvent. Select the batch number and confirm, and then we'll do a quantity confirmation where we can enter the yield, and we'll just do the full 450 litres, and we won't do any scrap or waste. I'll do the final confirmation here. So that's the first phase of the operation done. Let's move into the main part, the mixing phase. So we start that. Now we'll collect some data, the temperature. Again, this data could come directly from the equipment through sensors, but we're just going to enter this data manually here. And it's got between a range of 10 and 100. And then we're prompted to enter pH value, a density and viscosity, again with different range values that need to be entered and validated against. Finally, the material consumption. So we've got the 3 base components of the colors, red, green and blue, and we'll enter the full quantities and select the batches accordingly. And then finally do the quantity confirmation again for the yield, and we'll do the same 450 litres without any waste and make it a final confirmation. Now we have to do the last phase, which is the cleaning phase. Click on start. Again, we've got work instructions if need to be. Let's just do the data collection, and we're just going to acknowledge that we've done the cleaning. And then we're going to have to dry the equipment, and we just acknowledge that we've done the drying as well. And then finally the yield again. But we've also got this pure solvent that needs to be issued, so let's just enter that in first. and then again the yield for the total quantity of 450 litres. Now we've done the 3 phases. Let's create the goods movement and receipt it into inventory. And we've got 2 to receipt. We've got the purple paint itself, and we've got the byproduct of the purple wash, the impure purple wash. Let's click on post on the purple paint, and we're going to accept the full 450 litres will go against the batch number that was designated to start off with. And then for the impure wash solvent, we're going to have a batch number, so we'll put the quantity in there. And the batch is actually going to represent a tank that we're refilling. And we'll just confirm that. Next, let's complete the order and examine some of the financial postings. We're going to manage process orders, and we'll find our order. We'll mark it as technically complete. Then I'll filter back on the technically completed orders and find it again. So I just put our order in number in again, and I make sure I've got the status of technically complete. Click on go, and then we should just get our filter, and we'll go into the details. Here's our order. We can see the order schedule, the operations that were done and completed, and we can see the components that were issued. And if you look at the goods movements, we can see the transactions for the material issues, the goods issues, and the goods receipts of the finished product and the byproduct. Let's look at the goods receipt for the purple paint, and we'll go into the details there. We can see the transaction that got created and to the storage location that it went into. And here's a process flow from the process order to the material document to the accounting document. And I can drill down on the accounting document here and go into the journal itself. I can see the debits and credits and the actual journal transactions that were posted. For the last part of this process, let's look at reviewing the inventory of the purple paint and doing some batch traceability. So I'll start with the overview of the inventory management here. Various charts and KPIs. Let's change this and select just our material for the purple paint. And we've got quite a bit of inventory in this chart here on the stock value by stock type. And if I drill on the details for the chart, I can zoom into a list of the stock by location. Let's change that to batches, and I can see all the batches within that particular location that make up that inventory. If I scroll down to our particular batch we created, and I can drill down on the hyperlinks for the material or for the batch. Let's do the material. Lots of detailed analysis can be done here. I can drill down to all sorts of screens. Let's look at an example, say the inventory turnover analysis. Here you can see the issues and receipts against each period, and the inventory value and over age and the stock turnover data. If I scroll further down and look a bit more at the hyperlink and go into the stock single materials, which is the detailed stock screen, we can see our particular batch and the different categories of where the stock can be held within that location. And I can do a transaction, say transferring some stock. And here within that location for my particular batch, I could transfer some stock from unrestricted use to blocked stock. And let's do 5 litres and click on post. And that's created my transaction automatically for me. Let's go back to our stock screen again with the list of batches, and let's find our batch again, and this time drill down on the batch. And we'll go to the batch details. And in here, you can see all the batch information. You can have things like best before dates, expiry dates, etc. You've got the batch history. We can drill down on the actual process order that was created. We can click on related apps here. Lots of other details. For example, you might want to print a quality certificate for inspection. Let's go to the batch information cockpit to do some traceability. We'll put in our batch number and click on execute. And that's given us our one batch here in this panel. If I select it and go to the details, and we'll go to the usage screen, and now I can explode top down, and I can see the raw material batches that went into the process order that formed the batch that we have in inventory. So you can trace further down. Even if you had a transaction for a purchase order to a supplier, you could trace back down to that particular point. And now I'll look at another batch that I created earlier, and this one will show the actual dispatching to a customer. So let's select the batch, and again we've got the top-down analysis to the raw material batches, but then I'll change it to do a bottom-up analysis, and it's shown me an actual delivery that's taken place for 200 litres. And now I select the delivery details. It shows me here the delivery date and the customer that it went to. So in summary, we've gone through the plan to produce process for process manufacturing. We started with MRP and demand planning, and we reviewed the recipe, looked at the sales demand, and carried out predictive MRP for medium to long-term planning, and then simulated resolutions for shortages within MRP, as well as creating the process order. Then, for production planning, we reviewed and generated the process order and its capacity impact, and scheduled it. And then from an execution perspective, we released the order to the shop floor, executed the production for each operational phase, and then confirmed the production batch. And then we looked at reviewing the process order and completing it and looking at its financial postings. And finally, we reviewed the inventory and did some batch traceability. Let's end this session by looking at some manufacturing insights, i.e. some detailed analytics to measure performance across your manufacturing operations. I'll start by going into global insights. Here you might have a map of your entire operation with plants across the globe. And we've got two regions here in North America and Europe. And you've got different KPIs here, OEE, on-time analysis, defects, etc. Let's just select OEE, for example, across the entire organization. And we've got different values here for the different plants. I'll select Europe on my map and click on Show Plants. Again, we get the OEE across the two plants, and then select one of these to drill down in a bit more detail. And that takes us to the manufacturing plant insights. So now we've got the KPI details in a bit more detail. We've got trend analysis across different ranges, and here's the different KPIs. Select our OEE. We can see the upper and maximum range that we're measuring against over time and the values. There's a heat map here for particular work centers or production lines where you can see the actual OEEs for those areas. And let's pick another one of these. Let's say schedule conformance. And similar sorts of information, a trend of the values over time with the ranges that you're measuring against, and a heat map looking at the variance by material. Let's look at OEE in a bit more detail. Let's go to OEE Insights. So we're looking at the complete hierarchy of the organization here, and we've got detailed charts underneath for availability, So we're looking at the downtime and failures that have occurred on a particular line, the performance, the run rate of the machines and against the different products, and the rejections relating to quality against different products and different lines. And I can change that to look at different elements of the hierarchy. For example, let's look at Europe as a region, and the values should change accordingly. Let's click on Go. And again, we get the breakdown, but this time we're looking just at Europe for OEE, availability, performance, and quality. An example, you can scroll down further to have more detailed charts. Let's now select a number of plants we want to compare against. Let's just open up our hierarchy again, and I'll select a few plants that we can do a comparison. Let's go into France, select one there, select one in Spain, let's go for one in North America, and just pick another random one, say in APJ. And now click compare. So now we've got the OE for all 4 plants. There's nothing in the Indian plant, so we ignore that one. And the other 3, you can see the values of availability, performance and quality against the 3 plants. We're looking at week by week, and I can change that to a month. And you can see the values of the P100 plant doing better than the other 2. And then, of course, change the range accordingly for the other elements. And finally, you can create your own KPIs using some of these custom tools here and personalize your dashboards. The KPIs can show as tiles on the dashboard itself within the menu, and they can highlight red if there's an issue, or you can drill down and create some detailed charts as well using the dashboard designer. Thank you for your time. That was the end-to-end process manufacturing within S/4HANA Cloud and the Digital Manufacturing Cloud, and a little bit about manufacturing insights to close the session. Thank you.